Hello, everyone, and welcome to this post Snyder Cut released edition of Ian. And yes, ladies and gentlemen, we are in a new paradigm, a new reality, if I might. Up is down, down is up, inside is out, round and about is straight. Every single cardinal point of your orientation, just throw it out the door because the impossible has been made possible. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to ENN 31. This is such a fun episode. We're going to do, a Snyder Cut release celebration, amongst other really cool topics that we're going to talk about. So the cinematic wastelands that we've been exiled to feel like this lush green paradise for once. And here to reap in the spoils of this war are my fellow film exiles. I am joined, as per usual, by the best of the best, as good as it gets, Christian. How are you doing?
It's always so hard to live up to be the best of the best, but I'm doing great, man. How about you?
I'm chilling. As you can see, I'm in a good mood, and
That's
we're
right.
also joined by the incredible, the spectacular, the amazing, the most positive force in the universe, Paul.
Wow, the hyperbole is going to be hard to live up to, but yes, there's a new feeling of positivity in the air. I'm excited to bring a blast of joy to you guys tonight.
All right, let's see how long that lasts. Okay. All right. So here's our rundown of topics that we're going to discuss today. We are going to start with a nice appetizer of two reviews for two streaming services. The first one's going to be HBOMax, which just launched, and then we're going to do a review of the Quibi mobile streaming app. Then the main course is going to be the Snyder Cut. We're going to celebrate. We're going to talk all about it, hit it from different angles. We all have different perspectives on it. Talk a little bit about the past, the present, and prognosis into the future, as we tend to do on ENN. And then for dessert, we have our coming soon section. And a trailer just dropped for Inception. It's about a 2-minute trailer, so it was quite meaty, quite beefy. There was quite a bit in there. It tasted really good, I think, but I have the feeling that we don't know what we got really. So that's going to be a fun discussion as well. So without further ado, let's get right into it. Let's start with HBO Max. Warner has launched their own streaming service with HBO Max. So now we have another option, as well as Netflix, Hulu, Disney Plus, Quibi. More on that later. NBC, Peacock, Amazon Prime, Disney All Access. Woo! And a bunch more. We have HBO Max, and the proposition is that this is like a gargantuan, gigantic player in the game. It launched on Wednesday, the 27th of May, a day that shall live in infamy. And it launched in the US and in the US alone. So I reside in the UK. I don't have access to it, unfortunately. Paul, you reside in Canada. You don't have access to it, unfortunately. But Christian lives in the US, and Christian has explored the app, and he's going to tell us about his experience with it. So no more teasing. HBO Max here. Christian has downloaded it, used it, and he can give us a review. So Christian, tell us all about HBO Max.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, being in the USA sometimes, has its advantages and disadvantages. COVID, big disadvantage. But the advantage is we get stuff like this, and we get HBO Max, which is great. So I've used it on both a computer and on a mobile device as well. So first off, I'll tell you, it's extremely user friendly. Let's just get the technical shit out of the way first before we talk about the content. Very user friendly. Google Chrome compatible, Chromecast compatible. I was able to shoot it over to both of my smart TVs. It worked fine. PlayStation 4 worked fine. So from a technical aspect, if you can work HBO Go, or you can work, I think it's HBO Now, their other service, you're going to be fine with this. It's just as easy to navigate as Netflix, Disney Plus, the rest of them. It's very simple. Stuff that they want to push to you immediately goes to the front page. And then it's very easy to navigate through movies, originals, action, comedy, crime, all that kind of stuff. And what's really cool is if you scroll to the bottom of the different sections in the genres, they have a standalone HBO section, a DC section, a Cartoon Network section, an Adult Swim collection, and one of the coolest things I saw was a TCM, a Turner Classic Movie section, which I thought was really awesome. So that's one of the coolest things I liked about it, is that everybody has it broken down by genre and everything, but Disney Plus and HBO Max have done such a good job, both of them, of breaking it down by the type, basically the franchise that you want to see. I thought that was really cool. So that's a huge positive. Now, the other a negative in terms of that, no 4K content yet. I've noticed there's nothing streaming in 4K. Now, for stuff that I have either in 4K already, or if it's Blu-ray and it's going to look awesome, Man of Steel, BVS, whatever, fine, who cares? But there's a lot of stuff I don't have on Blu-ray, and it does come in through full HD. That's nice, but Ultra HD would be nice. It would be nice. But right now, there is no 4K content. The other downside was as well, some of the stuff like BVS, for instance, there's no Ultimate Edition. We're just getting the regular theatrical cut of that movie. There's no option to get something else like the Ultimate Edition. So that was a little bit of a downside. Now, onto the content. There is a truly staggering amount of content in this. It takes HBO and then throws Warner Brothers content on top of it. The legacy content is truly outstanding. Big Bang Theory, The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, Friends. I mean, it's like all those sitcoms and those shows from the 1990s, they're all there. If you want to go through the Turner Classic Movie section, there's all kinds of stuff like Casablanca is on there, An American in Paris, Little Shop of Horrors, all kinds of crazy movies like that. You can teach your kids about classic movies all throughout this COVID lockdown. It'll be incredible. Stuff from Adult Swim is on here. Rick and Morty is on here too. So I've never gotten a chance to really watch that show. Now I'll get an opportunity. There's some great documentaries on here as well. There's some war documentaries, March of the Penguins, all kinds of cool stuff. So to me, this is where the app right now truly shines. It shines because you can watch Chernobyl, all of, everything, Watchmen, all that stuff that came through on HBO, in addition to classic legacy Warner Brothers content, stuff that they don't currently have the streaming rights to. The three of us know they've been gobbling those rights back up over the last couple of years. So like South Park isn't available right now, but it will be available. So that stuff is coming. So to me, the strength is the legacy content. Here's where I believe it falls so far, where it fails so far. Their original stuff so far stinks to high heaven. It's terrible. I tried the Anna Kent. I can't do it. I tried the Anna Kendrick show. I couldn't do it.
What's it called again?
It is called. Hold on. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Is it called Love Life or something?
Yes. Yeah, that's it. It's called, and they have Craftopia. Legendary is another one as well. And Love Life, by the way, is the Anna Kendrick show. And it chronicles her as she gets through her 20s into her 30s, and she's finding herself. And it's kind of a rom-com. But guys, between the three of us, I've seen better rom-coms. It's not, to me, a prestige show that you want to start your streaming service off with. It just doesn't work. There's a kids show. The Craftopia is a kids show. And they have, it looks like they also have a reality TV show for fashion design. They have that as well. And there's some other kiddie stuff like Elmo and the Looney Tunes cartoon shorts and stuff. But right now, there is nothing in terms of original content that would turn me on. For me, I love it because of the legacy content. Now, the announcement of the Snyder Cut and the potential for that to be 6 episodes or a 4-hour movie, that's great. But guys, that's 2021. So I'll end it on this. For me, I don't see this as a direct competitor to something like Disney Plus. Because Disney Plus, I think that they're looking at something different. Disney Plus is for kids, and it's also for Marvel, Star Wars, and then Hulu is for their adult stuff. So they kind of have it separate. This, to me, is a shot across the bow to Netflix. That's what I think they're trying to punch Netflix in the face.
Okay.
So in terms of just straight up legacy content, oh my God, they're starting with way more than Disney Plus had. They're starting with so much more than Hulu has. There is a lot to consume and a lot to watch here. And it's across all genres, comedy, crime, horror. It's incredible what they have here. Think about what they own. They own the It. They own The Conjuring. They own that franchise. There's so much that's available here. But in my opinion, it's just where it's lacking right now is their original entertainment. So that's my rundown. I hope I didn't go too long.
No. That was really good. So we have some follow-up questions. Paul, do you have anything in particular that piqued your interest or you'd like to know about HBO Max?
Not really. I mean, I think I have a rough understanding of it. In Canada, we have something called Crave, which is owned by Bell Media, and Crave is like an additional service and an app that you can add on to you can get it as a standalone, or you can add it on your cable subscription. And then Crave partners with HBO, Showtime, and another, I'm trying to remember who the other one is, HBO, Showtime. There's another one too that they partner with, the Stars, that's what it is. And so we get a portion of the content. So I signed into Crave. I went and, because that's our only sort of way to get HBO Max here in Canada. So I renewed with Crave, for the time being, just to see what it was like. And we get a portion. We get the HBO new content. So right now we have Love Life, we have Craftopia, and we have Legendary. And my daughter's been enjoying Craftopia. She's been that's her right up her alley. So that show really sort of hit the mark with her. What we don't have is their library, though, and we don't have their interface. So a lot of the benefits of HBO Max we don't experience with Crave, but at least we get their headline new content. So we've got those 3 shows I mentioned, and there's an article I found from Bell Media saying that they're also going to be getting things like Denis Villeneuve's Dune, The Sisterhood. They're going to get the Green Lantern series from Greg Berlanti. So the big headline shows for HBO Max will show up here. Now, it doesn't look like it always stays here, though. I've been looking for some stuff that I know is available on HBO Max or HBO, and it doesn't show up here anymore. So I'm not sure how long we get to keep this content. But at least, for the time being, I've got access to these shows. And if not the full library, at least we have, we have the new stuff, as they say. And on the plus side, Crave has some, partnerships that, like with Comedy Central, we have the full library of South Park already, which I understand isn't available in the US yet. So that's a nice perk. But I was looking forward to seeing Rick and Morty because I've never watched it and thought I'd like to give that a try. And we don't have that available. So, you win some, you lose some. At least it's available here. And, from my perspective, what matters to me most is Zack Snyder's Justice League, and I'm pretty sure that's going to be one of the shows that shows up here when it airs. So that's the most important thing for me.
That's comforting, right?
Absolutely, yeah. I've got a way to get it. Yeah.
For me, I think you inferred this sort of question, but I would like some specificity. So for streaming apps, it's standard knowledge, widely held knowledge that people sign on for new and original content. They stay for the library of stuff from the past. So, in your assessment, would it be correct to say that they're going to have a problem with new signups, but for people who sign up, once they get in, they're going to be very happy with what they find in the library?
I think that's inaccurate. I mean, I would never pretend to, like I would know people's tastes and whatnot. So I wouldn't want to say that. However, I think it's accurate because it's a little pricier than Netflix. It's a couple in the United States. It's a couple bucks more expensive per month than Netflix, and to not get 4K content and things like that. And they're right now, their original stuff is lacking. I have to admit, it's lacking. However, I think what you said is absolutely accurate, because once you get in here, the Alien movies are in here. 2001, Space Odyssey, The Abyss, Alita Battle Angel is in here. There's so many good movies in here. Armageddon, Michael Bay stuff is all in here. Now, and forget DC, all like the DC cartoons, like The Killing Joke and Batman Gotham Knight, they're all in here. So I do believe, I really do, that there's a lot in here. Once somebody gets in and they start browsing through it, they're going to go, holy crap, there is a lot here. But you're right. I think if they're considering saying, I want to sign up for a new service because there needs to be something new for me to watch right now that I want to get into, I think it's lacking now. And COVID probably doesn't help this situation because a lot of this production is on hold.
It's on hold, yeah. They were planning on starting with having Friends, the Friends reunion as their bench draw, and that just got effed up with the whole COVID thing. So we can't really blame them and sort of say that they're being incompetent or they're not aware of the economics of the marketplace. Like they they're like everyone else, at the mercy of Mother Nature. Paul, do you have any follow-up before we move
Yeah,
on?
there's one thing that shocked me about this. I was following the HBO accounts on the day of the Snyder Cut, or sorry, not the day of the Snyder Cut announcement, but on launch day, and I saw someone complain that HBO Max is not yet available on Roku or Fire TV, and for me that's a big deal. I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah.
I use those on every TV in my house. I
Right.
have either a Roku or a
Right.
Fire TV. So thankfully for me with Crave, it's an old app. It's pre-established. I've got that access. But for you guys in the States that are signing up for HBO Max, you don't have that yet? Like, that seems hard to believe.
It's hard to believe, but it's true, at least as of now. And you're right, that is big because I forgot the numbers, but it is in the millions. It's a huge amount of people. Now I have two smart TVs. They're Vizios, both my smart TVs, and neither one of them yet have the HBO Max app. They don't have it in their recent firmware update that came through. They don't have it, and that Disney Plus took a good month or a month and a half to come through. So I'm sure they will. However, I will say, as long as you have a Chromecast or you have a smart TV that has the ability to Chromecast, it works just fine. I've had no problems with it. And my PS4 had no issues with it. And I believe Xbox has no problems with it as well. However, I'll end on this. What you're saying is, I think, will be a problem because there are a huge amount of people in the United States that consume their streaming like that. Yeah. Yeah. So I think that's a problem.
So we couldn't blame him when it came to COVID, but for this, we can definitely blame him. And they had that ready to go on launch. Definitely. Definitely.
And I don't think there's an agreement with Comcast either, by the way. Universal Comcast NBC. Yeah.
I think I just saw something. I'm an Xfinity subscriber in the US, and I got an email, I think, saying that HBO Max was going to be available through Xfinity, and that's Comcast, I believe, right?
Yeah, it is. So that's cool.
I think that just came like a day or two, like maybe yesterday.
Okay.
Yeah. I didn't read the details, but I think it's there.
I'm really curious to hear what the next news cycle next week is going to say about the launch, whether it was successful, whether it was lukewarm, whether it's as they expected. I think just with the way things are going, they probably have a plan to build slowly, not just like start out with a bang and just be on top like Disney kind of did. I think they have plans and devices to build this over years, and they're going to take the long approach. They're going to play the long game. And I think that they have the ability to be successful in the future. So I mean, we'll probably talk a little bit about it next week if any sort of really buzzy huge news comes out. So we'll look forward to talking about that. But from one streaming app, let's go to another, the Quibi mobile streaming app. Now, this is a very unique, selling point. It has a unique proposition and place in the market. It's a streaming app that's for mobile devices, and everything is optimized for mobile devices. So we're talking about, you can watch every single show in landscape or portrait mode. The length of the shows are bite sized, so you can consume them on the go. They're between about 5 and 10 minutes, on average 7 minutes for each episode. And it's designed so, when you're on the go, I don't know, you're at, a deli trying to order a sandwich, you're at the DMV, in line, you're commuting to work, you're on the train, on the bus, or, you're on your lunch break, you can just quickly watch 1 or 2 episodes. However, it had what we can, nicely call a false start. So they had the COVID, situation broke out, and they were met with the decision: do we suspend this launch or do we just go full throttle? And they decided to go full throttle, and it has backfired heavily on them. Signups have been very tepid, even though they offered a 3-month trial, a free 3-month trial, and even use has also been low. I took advantage of the 3-month free trial because I was like, this shit is free, so let me just hop on whatever.
Not a bad idea.
A lot of people didn't even care to. That's how cold, not even lukewarm. That's how cold the reception is. And the saddest thing about it is that even before they've had the chance to mature, they're already being branded a failure. And that's going to be a very hard tag to shake. In branding and marketing, these are really crucial things. If you're branded as a success, people want to be part of the success. More people want to sign up because, wow, I'm hearing it's awesome. So many people are, people want to be with the in crowd. But if you're branded a loser and a failure, people are very likely not even going to want to give you a chance. So here is my review of the Quibi app, and I'll be very brief. There's not much to say about it. It's a dope app. It's a freaking phenomenal idea. However, they launched it at the wrong time. It's not an app that's meant to compete with your bigger screens at home. When you're at home and you have the option between watching something on your cell phone or watching something on your big TV, you're definitely going to pick your cell phone. So that false start is on them. But I think that once restrictions on movement and begin to ease, and businesses begin to open up, people begin to go out and stuff, I think that they're going to pick up a little bit of steam. However, they do have to contend with the fact that they've already been deemed a failure. So that's going to slow them a bit. But I think in the long run, Quibi's going to be okay. They're going to take some losses, and they have to be ready to take some losses for a little bit longer than they probably planned. Now, I'll tell you, the user interface is brilliant. It's very intuitive. You get really good suggestions. They first ask you like a couple profile questions, what sort of shows you like and other networks, that kind of thing. And they get a good idea of who you are and what you like. And they do a good job of getting that right in your face. What's really cool about it is that you don't have to invest 50 minutes into trying a series. They're literally about 7 minutes long, and the way they're structured is that it is an episode with a beginning, a middle, a start, that kind of thing, a good cliffhanger. And the show that I've been watching a lot is called Most Dangerous Game. It stars Liam Hemsworth and Christoph Waltz and Sarah Gadon, and it's about a man who is fatally ill. He's diagnosed with a brain cancer. There's a tumor in his brain, and he is going to die. And he's contacted by this really mysterious, wealthy agent who organizes a game that's a human hunt to the death. And so they offer the prey, as they're called, money. And every hour you survive, you get like an exponential amount of money. So you start with like 50,000. Then the next installment, if you survive an hour, you get 150,000. If you survive another hour, you get 500, all the way up to about, I think the final hour, you get like 25 million. Huh. So obviously, to make it more dramatic, Liam Hemsworth, he's about to leave his family in debt, and, his wife has a baby, that sort of thing. So, yeah, it's a really, really, really cool series. I've been enjoying it. The times when I watch it are when I'm cooking, that sort of thing is like a good time where I'm away from like bigger screens. Normally I'd use my laptop, but I've decided to give the app a chance, and that's when I use it. For me, when, we're able to go out a lot more, I've started going out a bit because restrictions are easing around here. I don't like to use social media when I'm around people, but if I'm like in line or somewhere else, like I'll definitely like give it a shot. The price is not expensive at all. There's an ad-free and a ad included version. I think the ad-free version is about $7, and the ad included version is about $4.99, something like that.
So it's pretty cheap, actually.
Yeah, it's honestly it's pretty cheap. I think people are gonna have to, because a lot of people, we always get like a lot of like free apps, but you're just gonna have to think about it like you're downloading like a game on your app that you pay for.
And they are creating content for it. I mean, you gotta pay for it. It just makes sense.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the content is really good. There are stars on this. Like, a lot of big Hollywood stars I've created. Like there's a Sophie Turner series on it that I'm gonna get on after I finish A Most Dangerous Game. There's also this sort of unscripted like reality TV series on there that has people like J-Lo and the Jonas Brothers and Taylor Swift. It's one of those, doing good for people kind of series. So yeah, it's like pretty good content, and I wish them the best because it's a good app, and you can see they've invested a lot into it. I just think that decision to launch it now was just the wrong one. So 2 thumbs up for me. Do you guys have any questions about it that you'd like to know?
Do you think that this is something that replaces one of the other streaming services that are out there, or is this something that like people need to say like this is complementing one of the other streaming services that they have? Like, is this going to be like a Netflix or an HBO Max or Disney, which is almost like a go-to for people?
For people, it's okay. So it's going to be a go-to. It's like it's both. I really think that if they're really able to gain some market penetration and just get into people's phones and get people's eyes on it and get people to give it a chance, it will become a staple. I can see this being like a Netflix kind of thing. It can have that kind of impact if they're able to, keep on putting on good content on there and giving people stuff to, because the thing about it is that it can be like Netflix, but the funny thing is it does not compete with Netflix. Right. Nobody's going to use this at home, period. Like there's just, I mean, you can, if you want to, if you're like, oh my goodness, I wonder what happens in the next episode. Yes, you can, but really it's designed for when you're out of your house. So think of all the hours you're out of your house and you're idle and you're just on your phone. That's what like this app is for. And if they can get you to just watch 1 episode a day on something, it's totally worth it because you get actually like really, really, really like good series, good content. So I think that I'm just hoping that they can get over this rough stretch. I can see this being the Netflix, but on mobile devices, and then they will start having people try to compete and try to get into the market. I can see maybe Apple will be seamless if they're smart. If this really picks up and becomes a big thing, Apple would be smart to be able to make their Apple Plus for large screens and kind of have an optimized version where you can have like shows that are for the mobile and to have that cross pollination. I think that could be smart for them. But it's because I mean the episodes are 7 minutes long, so it's not competing with a Netflix series that's like 50 minutes long. So it's a completely different market, and I think they can do well. I hope so.
That's interesting. I mean, and I wonder if, I hate to say it because this is horrible, because we blame COVID now for everything, but for rightfully so, because it kind of froze the world. But you mentioned, people are out and about and everything. For the moment, at least, we're not. So it's probably going to be a couple months again before people are out and about regularly. Maybe that's when maybe that's when they get their second wind.
I hope so. So, because it'll be a shame for something this well made to just go to waste.
Yeah. And I can stare at Sophie Turner all day. So
I'm gonna hop on the Sophie Turner series as soon as I finish a Most Dangerous Game, which I think I might have like 2 episodes left. Paul, are you curious at all about Quibi?
I'm looking at the show list, and there's a few things here I'd be interested in checking out. What disappointed me is that originally they had the 90-day free trial, and then when I went back, it's, at least in Canada, it's down to a 14-day free trial. I don't know, Christian, if you've taken a look at it recently, but that's a substantial drop. Like, even if it was 30 days, I probably would have just signed up to give it a chance. But I don't see myself having time over the next 14 days to invest in it.
Really,
and that's the thing. Is like I'm busy as can be with everything else. I don't need 7-minute episodes right now. But there are a few things I'd be interested in trying. It's just I just don't know when I would watch these. And you say I thought I heard at some point they are going to make this available so that you can watch it on your television screens. Have you guys heard anything more about that? I don't know, Lupe, if you mentioned, I missed that if you did.
Yeah, I'm not sure if they've implemented that, but they did say that that's something they're definitely going to include. They're responding to the feedback from the marketplace, and
I
they
think I
never
read
anticipated that people will be confined to their homes and would
right.
need to do
Well,
that.
And for me, like, I mean, I can't watch 7-minute episodes at work. I can't. And if I'm not at work, I'm driving to and from work, or I'm doing something. Like I just that idea, and I know it works for people that take subways or buses, that sort of thing. But for me, it's not a format that appeals to me. But yet, some of the content might appeal to me, and I would give it a chance if I thought I'd be able to consume enough of it to make it worthwhile in the next 14 days. So. Who knows? If the right window hits at some point in the next little while, maybe I will sign up and give it a try. I just wish they hadn't shortened the free trial so drastically.
Same. I think they shot themselves in the foot with that one, because this is the time when they should have actually extended that offer.
Or even reduce it to 30 days, not 14. Yeah. 14 is so short.
It's a drastic reduction. By the way, the gentleman, what's his name, Tom Conrad from Quibi, he did put on Twitter the other day, AirPlay support is live for iOS, but they're working hard on Chromecast, which they believe will be available in June.
Okay.
So that's something else. Yeah, you can shoot this stuff to your screen then.
Yeah, they're working on it, and we wish them the best. So on to our like, this is like the main event, the Snyder Cut. Ladies and gentlemen, the Snyder Cut, win by unanimous decision. And so Zack Snyder had a Man of Steel live screening, and post that they had a Q&A. Henry Cavill was a special guest. Zack Snyder, the performance artist that he is, the man of theatrics and dramatics, danced around it, teased a little bit, almost broke our hearts. Then he showed us, the graphic of the Justice League coming to HBOMax in 2021, and there was pandemonium in the streets. I tell you, people went ape shit crazy, bat shit nuts. Bananas, pineapples, mangoes, whatever you want to call it. There was so much celebration from fans. It's interesting because you see the reaction people have. It's like everybody had faith, and everybody had belief, really, really strong belief and conviction. But the way people are celebrating is like they never expected it to happen. It's one of those interesting contrasts and contradictions in life where you're like, I had all the faith, but I never expected it to happen. But now that it's here, I don't believe it's happening, but I'm celebrating it happening right now. And it was just, I was so happy to see the joy of Zack Snyder's fans, Zack Snyder's collaborators in filmmaking, Zack Snyder himself, Deborah Snyder, just imagining the joy that his whole family, with Eli and his children, a lot of them got off social media post Batman v Superman because of how toxic the whole place was. And then, they have their family loss, and then Zack Snyder going through this very tough time professionally as well. And the amount of joy that everyone just has, it made me feel so good. And then you had, the media reaction on the other hand. Now, not every single media article was condemnatory or hating, but enough for it to be something that we have to address, and for it to be something that I think is really shameful. The knee-jerk reactions to just hate. It was gross. Like, some of the articles were comparing it to like Trump winning, to Brexit, slandering fans, calling fans bullies. There was this absolutely abhorrent and heretic article by a person who does not deserve to be named or given attention, but they said something to the effect of Snyder fans used suicide prevention as a shield for their bullying. And so it's not surprising to see the reaction from too many media outlets, but it's still shameful. It's still shocking. It's one of those things where you like, at first, my reaction to it was ignore them, keep celebrating whatever. And now I'm at the point where I feel really sad for them. Like, they're really sad, miserable people who are going through they're going through something in their lives to make them this miserable, and this it's really sad. Like, some of these people really need help, and I'm not even joking.
Yeah.
They actually
you're right.
need help. Like, so you guys, do you have any follow-up thoughts? I'm sorry I ended on a sad note.
No.
But Paul,
Yeah.
talk to us about your reaction to the announcement and also the media reaction.
Well, that announcement, I mean, he dragged it out and dragged it out. And like you say, we all went in with tremendous optimism, but we've been fooled so many times in the past. And going in, I just had this, I just, had this feeling in the back of your head, like, what if this is just people getting overly worked up again? What if this really is just a Man of Steel director's commentary? And I thought, no, it can't be that. It couldn't be. And then, and I thought, well, what if it is? Is the movement going to be able to recover from this? Like, is this going to be the ultimate, backbreaking move, but coordinated by bloggers and Access Media to finally drive the nail in the coffin for us? And he started talking, and I thought, okay, here it comes. And then he kept talking, and then he's talking about putting on a thumb drive and leave it in the bathroom. And I'm like, okay, this isn't good. And then eventually pass it off to Henry Cavill, and he started going on about the role of Superman, and he kept talking, and and at that point, I think I just stopped listening. I thought, oh my God, they really did it. The bloggers and the Access Media tricked us into thinking it was going to happen when it wasn't. And then finally, we got that screen capture. But for that brief moment, I thought, oh my God, this is it. It's not going to happen. After 2.5 years of hoping and remaining optimistic and fighting for this thing, and finally, this is the first time I really, really believed it was going to happen. And then you have that moment, and I think Lupe, I think you guys probably felt that too for somewhere in the neighborhood of 15 to 30 seconds, where you had this real dread of this isn't going to happen, and then it did, and wow, what a tremendous sense of relief, and it's still hard to believe. It's surreal, and until we see it, there's always still that bit of skepticism because of everything we've been through. But I mean, we got it. What a tremendous victory for a group of dedicated fans who believed in something that is right and just, and found a way to channel that energy in a positive way, to not only help a director reestablish their footing in this universe, get a chance to show their vision, but also donate to suicide prevention. I learned a lot about mental health and suicide prevention just through this myself. I mean, it's not something that's ever been, thankfully, a big part of my life, but I'm certainly more aware of it now and more sensitive to it now than I would have been. And at the end of the day, we're getting this movie, and it's going to be. It sounds like it's going to be something that's not exactly what we thought we were campaigning for. It's going to be more. It sounds like, and we'll get into this, but it sounds like this might not have just been the Snyder Cut. This might be a bigger and better Snyder Cut that's going to open the door to potentially bringing the universe back, and that's exciting, really exciting as you start to consider the possibilities. So just tremendous, and the blogger negativity is expected but disappointing. And you know what? There was a couple that actually admitted they were wrong. One of them, I think it was one of the. I think it might have been one of the former Screen Junkie guys, had a pretty good video admitting, where he was wrong. A lot of them have dug in.
Right?
Yes, he had a good video. And then there was there's a great article in the Washington Post by Sonny Bunch. But then of course you have these you had a few that were just more of the same, and the spin that you talked about that, like you said, I tried to just ignore it, and it's easier to ignore now because we won, right? Doesn't that make a difference? Like, it's harder to ignore when they're controlling the narrative, and I feel like we finally took the narrative back, and not only did we take the narrative back, but boy, does it feel good to be supported by AT&T and HBO Max. Like, we've got them on our side now, vocally on our side, and that makes such a difference. So it's easier to let some of this stuff slide. But like you said, the some of these bloggers and access media are mad, and you pity them, because you see their anger and their hatred and their desperation to cling to that anger and hatred to try and generate traffic, and this is a weird phenomenon in the States where everything has to be tied into a political narrative. If you don't agree with someone's taste in something, then you must be a Trumper. Most of us aren't even American, but they've created this narrative. And that same article you're talking about, Lupe, I think he ended on the fact where he apologized for his naked identity politics, I think he said. But he basically invalidated everything we've done that was a positive and boiled it down to our desperation to validate a cis white male. And I thought, how do you get that out of 2.5 years of an incredibly diverse international audience advocating for artistic integrity and raising funds for suicide prevention? But somehow in their mind, and like you said, I think this goes back to their own issues, they've spun this as an us versus them and tied it back into their own weird political obsessions. And it's just crazy. As someone who's not American, as an outsider, it's baffling, it's frustrating, and it's sad. But at the same time, we have to be conscious of it, because we have to make sure these people don't take the narrative back, and they're going to be trying, right? So we have to be aware of that. We have to support Army of the Dead when it comes out. We have to keep positivity about the Snyder Cut, keep excitement about the Snyder Cut, and more than anything, we have to watch it, and we have to watch it through legitimate paid means when it comes out. So that's what we have to keep in mind.
Absolutely, I agree. Christian, what do you think?
There were good points in there. I didn't watch the live stream, but I was keeping an eye on Twitter while I was working, and my personal reaction was a smile and it's about fucking time. Like, that was basically it. I mean, it just, we talked about this in a previous pod. Shit or get off the pot. Jesus Christ, just release it. I have a shelf full of director's cuts. This is different than a director's cut. I understand that, but I have a shelf full of director's cut in my collection here. Come on. And they did it. And look, as the ultimate consumer of comic book movies, I liked it. I thought it was cool. I get the I'm talking selfishly. I get the continuation, maybe the closing of a story that was started in Man of Steel. I know there's a potential expansion of the Snyderverse here, but let's take what we can get right now, deal with the rest later. DC, in my opinion, still seems confused about what they want to do. They're not going to suddenly stop Pattinson's Batman. Shazam 2, Black Adam, that's all still happening. So I think we have to just wait for a second now, and let's get this. Production, of course, a lot of stuff is halted because of COVID. So let's just appreciate what you got at this point. And again, I repeat, as a consumer of just comic book media, holy shit, great. A bad movie occurred. I put it out of my mind. You guys didn't, and we already talked about that. You fought the fight that you needed to fight. I know I'm getting the spoils of your war. I understand that, but so I appreciate you fighting. But I get to consume what could be the closing of what I thought would have been a really good trilogy, and then we'll talk about the rest of the Snyderverse in the future. I think for me, look, I would say, and I'll end in 2 points here, Lupe, and then definitely talk about the Snyderverse. I think the fight is probably what disappoints me the most. And I've seen the awful reactions on all sides. And guess what? The MCU fans, Star Wars fans, we're all just as bad. Paul, there's always bad apples anywhere. I know that. But Paul mentioned, and especially in the United States, everything gets hyper political. And it's sickening. Fandom, narratives, everything. You say, if I say I like the color blue, for some reason that turns into a political fight. And that's what disappointed me. This should have been something that we rallied around as comic book fans and said, guys, this is cool. This is a good thing. They raised money. Yeah, I understand we got into fan fights. Yes, I understand some of the fandom fought against the rest and there was toxicity on these sides. Okay, fine. Can we forget about that? That happens on Twitter. Let's forget about that. This is something really cool. That's it. It's sexy. It's cool. Let's talk about that as comic book fans. And I think that's what got lost in that narrative there. And I'll end on this before you talk about the Snyderverse, Lupe. A quick warning just about AT&T. I was part of the net neutrality fight a couple of years back, and they are a huge telecommunications company, and they don't care about us. They really don't. They want our money. That's really it. They want to make money. There's nothing wrong with that, by the way. I live in a capitalist country. It's fine. That's how it is, okay? They want to make money. If they're going to support directors, they're going to be more director-driven. If they're going to go to the fans and say, hey, we heard you, That's cool, guys. That is great. I think that's awesome. But I've seen a couple people online lavish praise on them because they won.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Just be cautious. They are no different than Comcast, Disney,
Mm-hmm.
or any of the rest. They're collecting all our data every day.
Mm-hmm.
They're still a scary company. So just be careful
Mm-hmm.
with AT&T. They are
Oh no,
very.
yeah, like
Well, go ahead.
let me interject. Like I'm 100% with you. Like I don't want anyone who hears this to interpret what you say as like hating. Like
It's not.
this
It's
is like
not.
he's a party pooper. He's always got it. Like like because some people might be a little bit sensitive in their time of joy to
Of
anything
course. Yeah, they're
that
excited. Of course.
doesn't sound as pleasant as it once sound. But you're 100% right. We got to be very careful of really big companies and the way that they're amassing more and more assets to their war chest. I mean, come on, guys. Like, we grew up watching movies like Terminator and stuff like, The Matrix. And, like these people, great sci-fi writers have been telling us, for years, 1984, like, you got to be careful with big companies becoming so big that they're even more powerful than countries, and they're able to manipulate elections and manipulate your purchasing habits and stuff like that, like, and
Right.
basically end up controlling you. So AT&T is one of those that people got to watch out for. So just because we got the Snyder Cut and we're happy and it's like strange bedfellows, doesn't mean that they're good bedfellows. They're strange bedfellows. So just keep your wits about you. I know exactly what you mean. AT&T is not like, oh, they're the greatest in the world. They saved us. Nah, they're still the big bad wolf. But for
Yeah.
now, they're strange
please don't
bedfellows.
think
Well,
I'm
but
like
Lupe,
I'm
they're
poo-pooing
the
on
big
it.
they're the big bad wolf on our side, and that's a relief, right? Because
Yeah.
they
They're not
they
really on
don't
your side though.
well, they're on our side for now. Well, I mean, at
All
this
right.
very moment, they're on our
Okay.
side, right?
I mean,
Because
in this little thing, they're on our side, but in the bigger scale of things, they're probably not.
Yeah. No,
well, I
I
mean,
agree. I mean, it's
they're a
like
business. They're trying to get money, but they see us as valuable. They
as
see us
money.
as a way of making money. Yes,
Yeah,
and
you're
that,
a
and you know
commodity.
what? And Warner Brothers didn't give us even that, right?
I'm
Warner
not
Brothers
saying that you're wrong.
saw us as an inconvenience, and AT&T said, "Hey, hold on a sec. Let's put the egos aside for a sec." Though they don't come in with the bitterness, obviously, that Warner Brothers had, and they said, "Hey, you know what? We got a 2.5 year sustained campaign with whatever metrics they've used to, analyze it, that they think they can make money off of," and that, I mean, that's what we want. We're consumers. We want to be recognized as consumers and be given the product back that we enjoy. I mean, if you want to boil this down to what this is, I mean, put aside all the human element. I mean, we loved the product we were getting. It got taken away from us because some people complained about the product. And AT&T said, "Hey, you know what? Instead of trying to keep the complainers happy, why don't we keep the customers happy who loved our product?" And that's nice. That, for us, that's a huge win for us. I mean, regardless of whether or not they're just a cold capitalist company, I mean, that's a huge victory for us.
It's you
So
shouldn't.
I'll
I mean,
You
take it.
shouldn't.
I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
I think to sum it all up, you're both right, but the way to split the difference is, yes, they're on our side in this, but stay woke. That's
Yeah. I
it.
mean, it's a
Stay
lot
woke.
like Disney. I love the MCU, but let's not forget what Disney is.
Yeah,
Let's not forget
exactly.
what they are.
Just stay woke. Like no matter what it
Yeah.
is, like this, like we're happy.
Yeah.
We know what they've done, but just sleep with both eyes wide.
Yeah.
Well,
Just,
and I
that's all.
think that actually that segues well into our next conversation about the future of the DCEU, because I think there is a little bit of a difference there that makes me feel a little bit better about that concern, which we can talk about when we get there.
Yes,
Yeah,
I mean,
go ahead.
let's go right into it. And so let's talk about. I mean, we do need to parse between AT&T and HBOMax, because HBOMax is a creative company. That's where you have the creatives. AT&T is a telecoms company. It's a mass conglomerate. They have a lot of divisions under their umbrella. So let's focus. Let's refocus our attention on HBOMax and their plans with the Snyder Cut, and what might that mean in the future, Paul? I think you have some good stuff to talk to us about.
Yeah, well, I mean, just sort of piggybacking off that last point. I mean, like you said, the difference is that with Disney, they are a huge brand that has a very specific appeal and image to maintain. AT&T is one step removed. And you know, they're obviously the owners of HBO Max, but HBO Max is not known for safe, kid-friendly product. They're known for being of producing the highest quality, or HBO is known for producing the highest quality product, and not necessarily being afraid to go places. They're not limited by their audience. So the fear I might have with the Disney, I don't necessarily have with AT&T and HBO Max, because I think that a lot of the product that they produce does push boundaries. So hopefully they let Snyder be Snyder, and hopefully it's successful. And then I think, you know, hopefully that opens the possibility to an expanded DCU on HBO Max, where they don't have those kind of constraints. They can bring us the serious take that we want with consequence, and that pushes boundaries and gives us what we fell in love with in Man of Steel and BVS. So as a fan of the original DC movies, Man of Steel and BVS, this is the most optimistic I felt in a long time, like since pre-Justice League, right? So there's real hope here, and you know, this sort of leads into the two things I want to talk about here. One, the possibility of an Ayer cut, which David Ayer is fully on board with now, and interestingly enough, AT&T is egging us on. Like, they're not shooting this down. They're not only with the Ayer cut, but also the possibility of a Ben Affleck return as Batman. They're responding with positivity to it. Like, you know, not outright saying yes, we'll do it, but saying, you know, we'll never know what happens, and sending you a picture of Batman. Or you never know what the future holds, and sending you a picture of Batman with a bat signal in response to Affleck. And they've been fairly, you know, as I say, positive in response to some of the tweets about the Ayer cut. And it's emboldened David Ayer. He's fully on board with getting his cut out. He's put out a bunch of tweets in the last 3 or 4 days. I'll just go through a couple of them quickly. One of them, he said, of course it exists. Of course it exists, and it's almost complete except for some visual effects. And then he had another tweet that came out and said, this is in response to another tweet. He said, "This is a good question. My cut would be easy to complete. It would be incredibly cathartic for me. It's exhausting getting your ass kicked for a film that got the Edward Scissorhands treatment. The film I made has never been seen." And then just today, he was asked about how his film would tie in with Zack Snyder's Justice League. And he said, "We synced up storylines. Squad was the on-ramp for JL, which was a much more ambitious 2-part movie arc with impressive scope. Squad was the appetizer for Zack's epic. Best laid plans, as they say." So clearly he wants it released. He's responded to HBO Max or AT&T himself a couple of times, showing interest. I think at one point he sent out a tweet saying standing by. So he wants this. What AT&T and HBO Max think about it, I don't know. Are they having talks? I don't know. You hear rumors and speculation, but boy, would it make a lot of sense. And if it's as close to complete as he says it is, and they could somehow get it out before Zack Snyder's Justice League as an appetizer, as he put it, I mean, to me, that would make a ton of sense. Now, even the rumors that are out there saying that this is in the works aren't saying that it's going to come out before Zack Snyder's Justice League. But boy, if they could make that happen, you know, if Zack's got that much additional work to do, if Zack's making substantial changes to this, and he's got this huge budget that Bob Greenblatt came out and said he wished it was only $30 million. So there's some big things going on with the Snyder Cut. I don't think we're getting the 214 anymore. We're getting something more. If in the meantime they could get David Ayer's true version of Suicide Squad out, let that be seen, and have it actually tie in more effectively with Zack's Justice League, I mean, that would be phenomenal. I'd love to see that. And if they could bring Ben Affleck back, like, I mean, I know Ben Affleck left because of what went down on Justice League and said he was done with it for his health, but things change. The people he's working with would be totally different. He looks like he's in great shape. Would he be interested in coming back? Who knows? You know, but there's possibility and there's hope again, and that is such a huge change. And even going forward, and I'll wrap it up here, I think you can have the Snyderverse on HBO Max, the original Snyderverse, and that vision continue on HBO Max, even if it's an episodic format going forward, and let them do their theatrical thing. Let them do their Shazams and their Aquamans and their Wonder Womans and their Matt Reeves Batman and their Joker type movies theatrically, if that's what they want to do. For me, I think you should keep the theatrical stuff not interconnected at all. Make that stuff standalone. Do it. Create your own little universes there. Keep the interconnected, mature, serious, grounded universe as the Snyderverse on HBO Max, and then you can have the CW for the people that like the CW. So you can have 3 different streams of DC, and I think that would be great. For me, as a DC fan, but not as a fan of everything DC. I'm a fan of a certain take on these DC characters, and that's what Snyder was giving to me, and it looked like that's what Ayer was trying to give to us. It looks like there's hope for that vision again, and that is such a win for us.
Yeah. I agree. I think I kind of have a different path towards the same conclusion, and I think that the Snyder Cut first has to hit. That, to me, that's the most important thing. It's possible, but to me, highly unlikely that the Ayer Cut will be announced before we see the results of the Snyder Cut. Because, I mean, let's not forget that the Snyder Cut being released, we made the impossible possible. This is bending on reality into reality. It's some of the most incredible stuff. It's unprecedented in history. And I think that a lot of DCEU fans, that hasn't registered, which might be a good thing. That might be why there was so much fervor and so much passion and an unwavering, unshakable faith, because people didn't really understand the odds that were against them, and they just, went with, with sort of naive, braveness. I think this is a very, very big deal. It's a huge risk for AT&T and HBOMax, because it's possible that it doesn't yield huge returns. It's possible that it doesn't draw in general audiences. It's possible that attempts to sort of revisit this part of the DC universe does something to the DC brand entirely. There are very many risks associated with this, and as we can see, they've plunked a huge financial investment into it. So people need to realize that this is a freaking big deal. If you accomplish a freaking big deal, like expecting that another, improbable, impossible thing will happen, like, oh, that happened, so then this must happen, I think it's not something that I would bet on. Let me put it that way. What I think people really need to focus on, and people can multitask. There's no reason why people can't, campaign for the Ayer Cut and at the same time have their eye on the ball. I think that it's very important that Zack Snyder's Justice League does not just well, but absolutely freaking kills. Because as from what I'm hearing, the proposition on the table right now for Zack is, and these are his own words, to put a bow on things. Closure. These are words I've heard him use. Now, I do think that all parties have an eye towards expansion and towards moving forward in the future. For example, when Zack Snyder made Man of Steel, he said he made it so that it could be a standalone Superman movie. Like, he put everything he could into it. He didn't hold back, because he said, you never know whether you're going to get to make more. And I think that he's taking the same approach with this. I think that the way that he's going to be able to continue this story is not going to be with him begging the studio to give him another chance. It was lukewarm, but part 2 would be better, I promise. It wasn't bad, but is if it's so incredible that they themselves are begging him. And the clear path is this way. I think that Army of the Dead needs to do gangbusters. If it does gangbusters, then HBO Max is going to be so bullish on the Snyder Cut itself that they're going to invest more in it in terms of marketing, which would get it to more people's eyes to know that it's coming, more general audience people that have no idea what the Snyder Cut is. Also, it's very possible that they will invest even more money into the film to, sow seeds for like the future. So if Army of the Dead does incredibly well, and I'm talking about like, oh, it's the biggest thing that Netflix has ever streamed, it's incredible. Then HBO Max is going to see that. They're going to know that Zack has an audience and that this can be really big if they give it, the whole package. Then if Zack Snyder's Justice League comes out and is incredible, new subscribers, incredible views, their biggest debut ever, they will beg him back for Justice League Part 2. And once that does well, basically, he'll be able to do anything he wants. He will have that kind of Christopher Nolan carte blanche. And that's when you can see whatever it is. Ayer cut. They're going to get into the business of director's cuts, of movies that didn't do well and that sort of thing. They were like, oh, this is a market that we can do. They'll bring the Ayer cut. You can see Ben Affleck back if Zach can convince him, and I think he has the passion to do it. You can see, spin-offs. You can see, them begin to build that universe and that sort of thing. But I think that HBO Max needs to see results from Justice League 1. I think that that's what everything, because that's the linchpin. They're not going to invest any more into it if they don't see that result. And if that doesn't succeed, they're not going to invest anymore. Ayer cut is not coming out if JL1 does not do gangbusters. It's not going to happen. Because as a matter of fact, the Ayer cut doesn't even have the same kind of, power behind it yet as the Snyder cut. So I think that people need to keep their eye on the ball and sort of, plan and strategize how Justice League Part 1 is going to be like the biggest thing ever. And my personal plan, and one that I'm going to try to promote and get people to do, is I'm going to buy about 10 HBO Max gift subscriptions, and I'm going to give them to a lot of people that I know on the promise that they watch Justice League Part 1. If a lot of fans can buy even one subscription apart from theirs, like, the numbers would be crazy. So the community needs to continue to be together, and just as we strategically and intelligently planned, did events, invested, and did everything to get to this point, it's not over. That same sort of mindset, that same sort of like genius gangster mastermind mindset has to continue. So, Kristen, what do you think?
There's that word again, money. Right?
Yeah.
There's that word again. But all joking aside, it's a little bit like having your cake and eating it too for AT&T. I mean, DC could have their version of the multiverse here. Now, you guys have said it. The Snyder Cut opens up possibilities, and that's amazing. It's possibilities that we didn't think before. And sidetrack to Suicide Squad briefly. This is just my opinion. I see that more as a straight up director's cut as opposed to the Snyder Cut, which is a bit of a unique animal due to the circumstances that surrounded it. But Suicide Squad was clearly collateral damage with what DC was trying to do in the fight they had to quote unquote Marvelize their universe. So that's pretty clear. And there's definitely a different cut of that movie out there. I think that's pretty clear right now. So, you and Paul have both brought up HBO as the producer of premiere content. And the fact that this is on HBO Max, and maybe it was, at one point, maybe it was discussed that they were going to get a Blu-ray release first and then go to HBO Max. That bodes well, I think, for people that want Zach to be Zach. I really think it does. Now, DC can kind of rewrite the narrative, because the narrative has been that this is the studio that chucks shit against the wall. They don't know what they're trying to do. And unless they go Infinite Earths and blow things up with Flashpoint or something, this does have the potential, I think, to mess up the DCU a little bit because of the plans that they currently have in place and the movies that are already released. But like you guys said, you could have a Snyderverse on HBO Max. You have a premiere product and for where they can put that content on there. The movies can exist and do their thing. CW can do their thing. Guess what? You have comic DC Infinite Earths. Yeah, like right there. You have it right there. And for a company like AT&T that's absolutely looking to make money back on the Time Warner merger, which was an unbelievable amount of money, that might be a good way for them to basically, when I said cake and eat it too, you have all the fans. You got the Snyder fans, you got the Four Quadrant fans, you got the people that for some reason like CW, I don't know why, but they do. And you have all of them, and maybe even just comic. I know I'm being mean. I'm sorry. And even comic fans like me, you'd have us all together. Like, you have a piece of all of us. So I'll stop with, I don't think any of this is guaranteed, and the reason AT&T is egging people on right now and they're winning social media, I think, is they're trying to gauge a lot of this, and they're trying to see if people are going to put money where their mouths are. I think that's what they're trying to do. They might be trying to see if people are going to put money where their mouths are. But hey, the continuation of the Snyderverse is a distinct possibility, but right now I think it's far from guaranteed. It's far from guaranteed.
Yeah,
I think us as consumers.
One thing I also want to add that we haven't really touched on is just, it's a like sidebar, is the level of excitement that Zack Snyder brings to DC properties and comic book properties in general. It's for a single director, the only person that matches this level of excitement that can generate this buzz on their own is Kevin Feige.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That is a fact. Like,
You
think
think
about it.
Nolan
Like,
too, or no?
no, I'm talking about just in comic book movies.
Oh,
Like,
okay, okay.
yeah, like Nolan is no longer doing comic book. If Nolan came back and said he wanted to do something, of course it would be like
Okay.
gargantuan. But I'm talking about like in comic book movies. Like, I mean, think about the run up to Batman v Superman or the run up to Justice League. Obviously, there was
Mm-hmm.
like a lot of turbulence, but before things went awry, like the fact that Warner Brothers lost him is
Mm-hmm.
some of the most puzzling and mind-boggling, crazy coconuts shit I've ever seen in my life. I mean, this guy is a one-man hype machine, and whether you hate him or love him, the attention is there, the buzz is there. Like right now, people are as hyped about watching Justice League Part 1 as people are about hating on it. Like everybody's waiting with bated breath to react to it, whether they're haters or they're lovers.
Oh yeah, they're waiting. They're waiting to jump on it.
Yeah, he
They're
posts a
waiting to
picture of
jump on it.
Darkseid and has hundreds of thousands of impressions on it. Like, so I mean, as Paul was saying, Paul was talking about the optimism. What I'm seeing is renewed excitement, renewed chatter. Like,
Absolutely.
this is what Zack Snyder brings. He brings a level of hype. No other DC movie since he's been around has had this level of excitement. Even Wonder Woman 84 that's coming out just doesn't. It has its fans. It does have, huge fans. People were highly anticipating it. Shazam didn't have that.
No.
Birds of Prey didn't have that. Matt Reeves' Batman movie that's coming up didn't have that. Like, there is just something about him. He's a Pied Piper for DC fans, and for him to not be making DC movies when he wants to is I mean, we talked about this, like your whole addendum to shit or get off the pot is we always said this: how can you have an asset just laying idle? Like, that's just you're horrible at your job if you have an asset that you can use to make revenue for your company and you're not using it. And Zack Snyder is an asset.
And an asset, by the way, that knows how to market as well. Can we talk about for a second? We don't have to really, but how beautiful the trailers for Man of Steel and BVS were. They were fucking
Absolutely.
awesome.
And his first
awesome.
Justice League trailer. Do you remember his first Justice League trailer?
Still awesome.
Yep.
Still awesome to this day. It's still a great trailer. This is a guy that not only, the style, again, we can talk about whether or not somebody likes the movie or not. That's fine. That's subjective. I don't care. That's another. But marketing and everything, all that shit's driven by him. The guy cuts his own trailers. So this is a guy that can generate interest just by being who he is. Yeah. And you're right, he's going to generate the haters too. But sometimes any press is good press, right? So it's like, sometimes you look
Absolutely.
at that. So Absolutely. Yeah, I think he gets people talking, man.
The key, and then the key to getting that Game of Thrones level success is that this has to be water cooler conversation. Like, this has to be every Monday morning at work. People are talking about, did you see Justice League last night?
Oh, did you see episode 4?
And I think there's a shot that happens. I mean, this is no small IP. There's a shot. There's a chance.
Dude,
it's gonna have a big audience. I'm not saying it's gonna have a Game of Thrones audience. I mean, that doesn't happen very often, but I don't think it's outside the realm of the possibility. And I think regardless, it's gonna have a huge audience. But in order to see the universe expand and flourish, you need to have something close where this becomes the event television on Sunday night. You can't miss it because people are going to be talking about it Monday. And like you say, Lupe, we have to make sure that we do our part to pay for it, watch it, and talk about it, spread the word, praise it, and in our workplaces and in our social circles and online and on social media, and try and build positive hype to counter the inevitable hate parade that's already scheming, already coming up with their plan.
It's coming.
It's building.
It's coming.
And it's coming in full force. And just to wrap things up before we move on to the next topic, I think it's very important that fans, are aware that, as Paul said, the water cooler talk is going to be very, very important. So there was this debate about, should it be released in uh, feature length film, this mega epic, 4-hour thing, or should it be split up into parts? And it took a while for me to warm up to the idea, but I'm 100% behind it being split up in parts. I think it's gonna work best for everybody. It's probably not gonna work best for us selfish people who are like, oh, we want it all at the same time to binge it. But if you really love this property and you want it to succeed, it being split up into parts, I think is definitely going to be the best because one, HBO Max is going to make more money that way, which is important. They need to make money back, have that financial return. Then the hype and the talk and the chatter about it is going to create even more buzz because when people are talking about something, it's going to draw more people in to be like, oh, they're talking about this. Let me hop on, let me watch, and let me get in on the conversation. So week by week, that audience is going to keep growing, if you just drop it only once, you're not going to get that kind of every week growth over 6 weeks. So it took a while for me to warm up to it. And I know there's a couple people who are still, who still feel like, oh, it's got to be in theaters or it's got to be one film or else it feels cheapened. The world doesn't work like that anymore. We're no longer in the time when putting something on streaming or on TV is a death knell to its reputation or it's less than. There are so many things we've seen on TV that are better than things we've seen in cinemas. So you cannot use that as a measuring stick. Game of Thrones is one of the biggest things ever made, period. Forget about TV or drama or sci-fi, or it's one of the biggest things, period. And it was a TV show. Okay. So Justice League, being on streaming and being serialized, that has nothing to do with the quality or the perception of it. And also don't forget that Disney Plus is gonna have put out a couple of their superhero TV offerings. So audiences are also going to be more open to that idea. And their TV shows, they're taking them very seriously. There's huge investment. The A-list, superhero casts are on them. So people are not going to look at Justice like, oh my goodness, this is on streaming. This is less than. Nah, the audience is ready for this, and the timing is going to be right. So that's just something that I felt we had to talk about. So let's end this conversation on a very interesting note. Henry Cavill, the fella playing Superman. Grace Randolph reported about a week ago that they were in negotiations to renew his contract, to extend him, and she said, something to the effect of, "Oh, it's so close that official word would come any day now," and official word has come. He has been re-upped, but there are a couple, and people get excited. Oh my goodness, that means we're getting Man of Steel 2, more Superman standalone movies. But there's a caveat in the report that says that no standalone film is planned as of yet. Mm-hmm. However, cameos and stuff like Shazam 2, Black Adam 2, any other sort of DCEU movies are part of the deal. It was trending on Twitter, so it's a very popular topic inside the niche fandom and outside. So what do you guys think of Henry Cavill returning, him as Superman, what you'd like to see from him and the DCEU going forward? Let's start with Christian.
It's strange. My feeling is, based on my friends in the Snyder Cut movement, that he's a bit polarizing in that community because he seemed to always be out for himself instead of jumping on board with the cut, with Zach, supporting the community. He was just more on board for himself. He was, Henry was about Henry, and that's it. But I do know that people in the comic and fan communities, they seem to like Henry as Superman. And if anything, I've been seeing calls for Man of Steel 2 for a while. If anything, they didn't see enough of him in some of the other movies. A lot of people the people that bash on BVS, what's the first thing they say? Well, Superman sucked. That's the first thing they say. So they wanted to see more of Superman. Sometimes they want to see their version of Superman. That's a conversation for another day. But they want to see more. And I'm one of those people that really loved Man of Steel. And I loved what they did and what Zach did with, and I know Nolan and Goyer and everybody they got together, and what they did with that new version of Superman living in our post 9/11 world. And it made sense to me to have that more Frank Miller-ish Batman go against Superman and Batman versus Superman. All this stuff made sense. I thought it was a natural progression. And I know that Henry kind of gets bashed sometimes for having a little bit of wooden acting, but I liked him as Superman. He was endearing, and he was just the right amount of like alien and human at the same time, because he really was trying to become Clark Kent as opposed to being Superman. And I liked that. So to me, that's good news. The bad news to me is what you just said. What the hell? Why are we just getting him in cameos? Man, why does DC, why are they so afraid to use this guy? Why are they so afraid to use Superman? Is it because he's some kind of lightning rod? Is it because there's people out there that will forever compare it to Christopher Reeve? And is that why? But it's disappointing. I would love to see him in a Man of Steel Part 2 and whether it's fine, if it's Zach, I liked Man of Steel 1, so give me Zach. That's fine. But the point is that I really would love to see him in another movie that's not just Nick Fury or the Incredible Hulk jumping in to make a couple jokes. That's not Superman. That's not who he should be. He's a beacon. He's something different. And I would really love to see him as a fully fleshed out character. We already had a start of that, and then it's been ended. I just don't think Superman should be a joke, basically. He can be in jokes. He can make jokes himself, but he shouldn't be the joke. You know what I'm saying? So if he's just going to be a cameo and be like a joke, I do think that's a problem. I do. He can come in and crack a couple jokes maybe, but like I said, I just don't like the feeling of this per se. So I hope I'm not poo-pooing on it too much, because the positive here is it looks like we're getting more Henry as Superman, and that could possibly lend credence to the people that believe that we're getting a little bit more of a Snyderverse. So something to consider in there. But I really liked Henry's Superman, so I'm excited to see him back. I just hope it's something more than just cameos, you know?
Yeah. Before we go to Paul, let me just give my take on it. So I'm of several minds about this, but I've settled on this. I don't really care where they go with the character at this point. Superman's my favorite superhero. However, Zack Snyder has given me my definitive Superman stories. This is the Superman story I waited for my entire life. Like, I cannot tell you how crazy it is to have had Zack Snyder like deliver Man of Steel and Batman v Superman, and now Justice League, hopefully part 1 and part 2. And for all those people who wanted a different kind of Superman, if DC wants to give it to them, I'm perfectly fine with that. I'm not gonna fight it at all. I'm not gonna, I might voice my my distaste for it, but it's not something that I'm actively gonna go out and try to have them change to suit my tastes. And I'm speaking in a fatalistic fashion because I think that that's the way they're gonna go. But at this point, Zack Snyder has given me, what I wanted, and the fight for the Snyder Cut, amongst other things, was to see him end that story so we can have that forever. So in the future, I'm going to have Man of Steel, Batman v Superman, Justice League Part 1, and Justice League Part 2, and I'm good. I really don't care what else you do with Superman. I'm fine. Like in comics, like I'm not too keen on a lot of the ways writers write Superman these days. I think that it's boring. There's no boldness, no bravery. There's no deep exploration. They're just doing a paint by numbers, hashing old ground, painting inside the lines. And so I read a lot of my classics. I love my Kingdom Comes and my Birthrights and my Ex Luthors, and Jerm Barn is the omnibus that I have. So it's going to be the same way for the movies. I'll have my definitive Superman story, and I'm okay to share him with everyone else. Everyone else can get their own turn at it, and that's what I think that's the attitude a lot of people need to have about these things. Like when we're getting our Superman story, there are people who like it. Just let us have that. When it's over, it's going to revert to something else that you're going to like,
Yeah.
It goes around. Let people enjoy things. Let people have things. You have yours, let people have theirs, and then it goes around. So I will be happy for them to do whatever they want with it after. There are a lot of other characters that I'm very interested in the DC universe that can hold my attention and can give me the type of storytelling that I like. So yeah, that's where I stand on it. I'm okay with whatever direction they want to go, whether it's cameos or movies, I don't really care, to be honest.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right,
Yeah.
Paul, what do you think?
Yeah, well, I think you guys have covered it for the most part, but I mean, my big concern with this is what kind of Superman are we getting? And on the one hand, I'm glad that we've got him back to finish Zack Snyder's Justice League. Hopefully, the reason they're saying cameo is because they're expanding down that storyline. They're preparing to do more of that in the Snyderverse. But I think what we've heard for a while now is the whole idea that The Rock wants him to be in his Black Adam movie, which I think could be good. I think that's okay too, and it might be a slightly different take. I mean, we know Henry Cavill is very much open to the more hopeful, optimistic Superman. He said as much, but at the same time, he said he thought Man of Steel was a near perfect movie, and so it gives me some hope that even if there's a shift away from Snyder's Superman, which is a Superman that I love, that it'll still be a reasonable interpretation and not this comedic farce that so many people seem to be clamoring for. But the one thing that worries me is the idea that he would somehow tie in with Shazam, because I think the moment you get Zachary Levi in a movie, I just can't take it seriously. Like maybe he could surprise me. Maybe he could become more serious in the role of Shazam. But he was so goofy in that first one. I just can't envision a movie where he and the Henry Cavill Superman that I love from Man of Steel and BVS coexist. I just can't reconcile that. And for me, moving forward, I would be excited about Henry Cavill in a standalone. I mean, he said he wants to do For Tomorrow. Sure, but bring it on. That sounds good to me. Have him in a serious, dark Black Adam movie with The Rock. Great, that sounds awesome too. Have him in Shazam too? No, thank you. So for me, the challenge is how do you reconcile the existence of Shazam and the Shazam family with everything else in the DCU? Because to me, that's a whole other level of cringe. Like that's CW level stuff that's infiltrated the cinematic universe, and now you have to deal with it. So that's my concern. And then of course you've always got that. That not to make light of it, but it's sort of almost like a PTSD from what happened with the bloggers, right? Like we have this fear that Warner Brothers will acquiesce to these narratives of Superman needs to smile, he needs to be hopeful and optimistic, he needs to save cats from trees and help old ladies cross the street, and has to solve every problem and be your father figure at the same time. If they go down that road, then yeah, I mean. Well, I think there's a legitimate concern that they go down that road because of the history that we have with them caving into those narratives and the persistence of those narratives. So this is, I think, reason for some optimism, but guarded optimism, because we always know that this could go horribly wrong. And on a personal level, I think, Lupe, you're right. Let people enjoy what they enjoy. But if they are going to deviate from the Superman character that Snyder built, just recast them. But people do love Henry Cavill, and a lot of the people that hate the Snyderverse, their go-to narrative is Henry Cavill would be great if only he had good writing and good direction, right? How many times a day do we see that garbage?
Yeah.
But that's a narrative that these bloggers push. So you always have that fear. Will Warner Brothers or whoever's, I mean, I guess, and I don't know, was there any, obviously I don't think there's been any details announced about where he'd appear, but if it's a contract with Warner Brothers Pictures or a contract with HBOMax or Warner Max, I mean, those could be different things, right? I'm assuming.
Mm-hmm.
I guess he could exist in both universes now, if these are seen as separate things. So it'll be interesting to see as the details emerge where this goes. But I think it could go either way. One way great, and one way not so great. So time will tell.
What I'm more interested in, to be honest, what I'm more excited about is prospect of Ben Affleck coming back and telling his Batman story that he was working on. I think that's a possibility. Is it a remote possibility? Yes, but I think that a lot of the reason why he left in the first place was because of the way that the bloggers treated Zack Snyder, and also the way Jeff Johns, the executive who was ambitious in serpentine manner, the way he treated Zack Snyder, because Ben Affleck is someone who loves Zack, who respects Zack. Zack is the one who convinced him to play the role with his pitch, his style, his take. So a lot of the cast members, seeing the way Zack Snyder was treated by the media and by the studio, Jeff Johns in particular, were not quite thrilled, and that led to disillusionment and why he left. And now Jeff Johns is no longer there. It seems like, there is hope once again. And I know Ben Affleck is a huge Batman fan, and he said he was so passionate and so excited to play the role until as I say, things fall apart the center cannot hold. So I think that his faith in things can be restored, just like Batman in Batman v Superman. His faith can be restored, and I think that he can come back to tell a story. And if anyone is wondering, how would that look with Robert Pattinson and DC, like basically, if that happens, we'll truly have reached the a stage in pop culture where the general audience is being treated just like comic book fans are treated, where you have so many Batman, versions across different comics, and people are still able to compartmentalize and know, all right, this is a Batman for this story, this is a Batman for that story.
Infinite Earths.
Well,
get lost.
Well,
Yep,
especially if one's on streaming and one's theatrical, that makes it a lot easier to differentiate. We're not talking about putting them both in theaters. And if you are going to have Ben Affleck back, and it is going to be his Joe Manganiello Deathstroke Batman story, that doesn't necessarily have to be a big budget thing either. I mean, it can be done well, probably on a reasonable budget. Batman isn't like some space odyssey, right? It's going to be entirely special effects. You can probably make a reasonable, an excellent Batman film with those two characters at a cost that's not insurmountable, I guess.
Well, I mean, you would have to consider the fact that Ben Affleck himself is very expensive.
Well, his cost, that's his cost for sure. But again, it depends on his passion for the project, right, as well. Mm-hmm. And but as that idea that the two existing simultaneously, I mean, I would be excited about that. I would go watch both. It doesn't have to be one or the other. I'd gladly go watch the Detective Batman in theaters.
How many Batmans are on the CW? There was one that was in the Gotham show. There's one that's in Batgirl. There's there's Batmans everywhere. Like one Batman for you, one Batman for the other guy. You guys want Batman? All right, you can get one. Like
there's a market for it. I think both would sell. I think the general audience loves Batman, and they'll watch it all.
Absolutely.
And the biggest issue, my friends in the movement, the biggest issue for them has always come back to me whenever we talk Marvel, DC, and all this other stuff, is that the narrative that got built up was that the MCU way of doing things was the only way to do it, which I think the three of us all agree that's wrong, but that's what was being told, that's the only way to do it. This would be great. I mean, if AT&T, by default, because I understand they're the funders, but if AT&T was doing something like that where you're covering everything, that's a really interesting way to do it. And now you actually do have a truly live action comic book universe.
Absolutely. Okay. So there's our discussion on the Snyder Cut. I'm super excited right now. Super excited for the future. I met a random comic book guy today, and we had a discussion about the Snyder Cut. That's how good it is. That's how good things are. There's hope once again. So
Lupe, Sean O'Connell was on our national news this morning.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I missed it. Brandon texted me about 20 minutes after it happened, or he texted me before, but I didn't see it till 20 minutes after. Yeah, he was on CTV News this morning. I'm gonna see if I can find that online, but it's getting around.
When we're done with this, you got to share that with us. But I believe that AT&T are going to reap huge rewards from this, because it's very exciting. And then you have us, the ultimate hype man, and then you have Zack Snyder, the most ultimate of hype man. The future is looking really exciting. Whether you're a hater or a lover, stay tuned. Okay, and now let's go to our Coming Soon section. Coming Soon is back on ENN. We haven't had a lot of trailers, or more accurately, a lot of exciting trailers to talk about, but the big kahuna is back in town. We have one, and it's Christopher Nolan's Tenet. We have a 2-minute trailer, so there's quite a bit in it, and I'll read the official synopsis, which will give us an idea of a good idea of what's going on in the movie. So it says it's an action epic film evolving from the world of international espionage. Period. We really have no idea what's going on. So vague. So it's written and directed by Christopher Nolan, the Great. Stars John David Washington, Robert Pattinson, aka Pattinson, and Elizabeth Debicki. So yeah, let's get your instant reactions. Paul, what do you think of the Tenet trailer?
Well, I wasn't going to watch this one, Lupe, because I'd heard someone said that it kind of gives too much away, and so I was avoiding it. But since we wanted to talk about it tonight, I did watch it, and I enjoyed it. You know what? I mean, I knew I was going to watch this one, right? I hadn't seen anything that really got me hyped for this movie, but this trailer did excite me about this movie, and I didn't know what was going to pull me in, but he managed to pull me in with this one. I don't think you're supposed to understand exactly what's going on in terms of how they're manipulating time.
Because if you're supposed to, they're doing a bad job.
Yeah. So they're teasing this concept of almost like playing time backwards in current time, and I don't quite inverting time. I think they refer to it as in the trailer. Yeah, time inversion, and so I'm still trying to wrap my head around what that means, because he's running particular elements of time backwards as he's going forward in real time. So we'll have to see how that actually works. But yeah, it got me more hyped for this movie, more interested, and did its job. So despite the fact that I didn't want to watch this, I'm glad I did, and I don't feel that it necessarily spoiled anything. I'm still completely confused going in. So I think it did its job. It got me interested without giving too much away.
Mm-hmm. Christian, what do you think?
What the hell did I watch? Like, that was the first thing that came. Was like, what did I watch? It was just out of control. You mentioned the cast, by the way. You already talked about Robert and John David and Elizabeth, but you also got Aaron Taylor Johnson, Kenneth Branagh, Michael Caine's in this movie, and I believe the music is Ludwig Göransson, the guy that did Black Panther, and he did a couple of other. There's really, really good people joining up with Christopher Nolan here. Like, to me, I'm with Paul. I don't really feel the trailer gave a ton away. It gave a little bit of one of its biggest set pieces away with that airplane. Holy shit. That looks incredible. And if you guys read the notes and the reports coming up, he decided against CGI for that scene, which is incredible.
Of course,
that's natural.
So he's the love of God. You know, this is Christopher Nolan being.
You wonder how movie budgets get out of control, eh?
Right?
Exactly.
You gave Christopher Nolan $200 million.
So now we know why, because he blew up an actual plane.
Blew up a plane. You gave Christopher Nolan $200 million. So this is what's going to happen. It's really cool. I like that it has different elements of stuff. Off the pod, Paul and I were talking before we started chatting about how this has a James Bond-esque kind of feel to it, but almost in some ways elevating some of the emotion and the hard hit on it. You know, like a futuristic James Bond. Let's say that, like more of a futuristic James Bond.
More intense with a sci-fi, fantasy, fantastical sci-fi kind of element to it.
Sci-fi James Bond, yeah, and it's got that kind of Inception-ish flair to it, which Inception was, until you watched it, was so confusing to figure out what the hell was going on. And even after a first watch, I felt like I had to watch it again to truly pick up. Yep. And I'm feeling that Tenet's the way to go. Look, if this is the guy that you want to have restart your theater experience, you could do a lot worse than Christopher Nolan. So, you know, I'm not sure yet where I live, especially in the New York area, where New York's going to be and New Jersey's going to be in terms of theaters. I don't know if I'm even going to be comfortable to go into a movie theater in July, but this is definitely the way to do it. I think the trailer was well cut. It was hard hitting, you know, and it left you with just enough to say, what the hell did I see? I have to see more now. But I do worry because of post-COVID. That's the only thing that really scares me. Yeah.
Yeah. For me, the first trailer was super confusing. The synopsis tells you nothing. And I was like, all right, so I'm getting trailer 2. I'm finally going to understand what this is about. And I came out of trailer 2 more confused than I was before. So good job, Christopher Nolan.
Thanks, Nolan.
Thank you. Like, just trying to wrap my mind around what he's trying to do is just, like, went through the trailer. I was already so confused, like, huh? And then at the end, he said something to the effect of, the thing about time inversion is that if you're going back in time, then what is happening now means that you never did it, What? Oh my God. I was like, you know what? COVID is going on right now. My brain can't handle
Can't handle it.
more craziness. So it's really going to be interesting to see why time inversion is such a big factor, how it's being used, all those elements. I just got to give it to Christopher Nolan for pushing the envelope, telling sort of very unique, very challenging stories to a mass audience on an epic scale. This is not like some esoteric indie movie. This is a huge tentpole blockbuster. I just got to give him a lot of credit. I'm excited for people to take it in, to remember what cinema is, and support it. I have all the faith in the world that it's going to be, pitch perfect in terms of the execution of all the elements, story, and it's not gonna be lacking. No, I'm very excited in terms of when it comes out. I have faith in. I'm living in the UK, and the government has been doing a very good job. I mean, they had some false steps in the start, and but they're doing a lot better than back home, the US. So I have faith that when they say it's safe to go to theaters, it will be. I will take precautions. I will wear a mask and gloves and that sort of thing. And I'll also go to a showing where there's going to be almost no one. Usually, if you go super early in the morning, there's you could be the only one in the theater. So once they say it's safe to go, I think I'll go see this. And if it's not safe to go, they probably wouldn't open theaters until the time is right. So
which is part of the problem in the U.S. I'm sorry to interrupt you, is that we're so regional driven, and because we're getting nothing from the federal government, there's absolutely no guidance coming from the feds. So where I live, we're much more conservative in our opening. We're really more conservative. But then Oklahoma and Alabama they don't give a shit.
They don't. Yeah.
So I think our theaters will be closed for a lot longer than the rest of the country.
Well, and you guys are still convinced that Nolan wouldn't allow this to be fast tracked to premium video on demand after a theatrical release, right? Because for me, that's how I'd be more. And when I say fast track, maybe a month later. You don't even think that would happen?
When it comes to cinema, he's a fanatic. And when I say fanatic, I don't mean fanatic. I mean a religious cultist. If you hear the way he talks about the cinematic experience, the theatrical experience, it's next level stuff. He lives and dies for the theatrical experience, and go ahead.
I don't doubt that, but I mean, given the circumstances, it would not shock me if this was available for people 4 weeks after. I mean, for all the hardcore people that want to see it in theaters, put it in theaters for 3-4 weeks. It can still stay in theaters, but maybe you make it available premium video on demand for people that are either in areas where they're not comfortable going to theaters. Theaters aren't open. People at risk or at increased risk. People with pre-existing conditions, old age, etc., that want to see this stuff. I mean, this is a unique situation. So I'd be surprised if they didn't concede a little bit, because I don't see anything. If they actually release this thing in theaters on schedule, I don't see anything changing substantially around us that's going to reduce the risk of catching this.
You know how exactly. You know how I think it could a path towards it being released early on SVOD is if it becomes an actual health issue. So if regions, states open up, if the UK opens up where you can go to theaters, and then there are reports of people contracting COVID from going to theaters and going to salons and stuff like that, and we have this reemergence of the virus, and we have to close things down again and sort of regather our steps. I can definitely see it then being a situation where it's irresponsible, morally irresponsible for him to have a huge box office draw, tempting people to come back. And maybe it could even be a situation where theaters are shut, period. So they're just you know what, we're going to send to homes. I can see that. But you're right. It's the year of COVID-19, extemporaneous circumstances out the wazoo. Nothing is the usual. And in all that chaos and darkness emerged the Snyder Cut. And on that note, ENN number 31 is in the books, ladies and gentlemen. It was a good discussion. A lot of positivity from Paul. I mean, I got to
Yeah,
give
I
it to
kept my
you.
word.
You
Kept my
did
word. I was
keep your
That
word,
you did.
and
That
you
you
weren't
did.
faking the funk. It was natural. So, how did you guys enjoy the conversation?
Yeah, it's great to be optimistic again. To be
Yeah.
genuinely not trying to find the positive and pretending not to be as negative as I want to be, but actually genuinely optimistic. This was a good feeling. The world has changed on since May 20th.
Absolutely. And let's keep that feel good feeling. And Christian, how did you enjoy the conversation?
That was a good conversation. I love the fact that all three of us got like excited and like pumped up and passionate about stuff that we were talking about. Like everybody had stuff that we talked about that we seem to really care about, and that makes a huge difference. You know,
Absolutely. Yes, it
definitely.
does. Yes, it does. All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, that's it for the day. That's all, folks. We are out. Christian, why don't you tell the people where they can find you on social media to share in the feel good vibes?
Absolutely. You want to talk positivity? You can reach me on Twitter. I'm also on Instagram at the same place. It's at chart6363.
And let's keep that feel good feeling going with Paul. Where can the people find you?
Yeah, you can find me as always on Twitter at _Paul_P.
All right. And I have been yours truly, Lupe. Keep that negative stuff far away from me. You can find me on Twitter at Live Love Lupe, on Vero, also at Live Love Lupe. You can find us as a collective at the Film Exiles on Twitter and also at the Film Exiles on the Vero social app. Thanks for listening. If you have anything you want to say, drop it in the comment section below. And until next time, stay exiled.